Hey family, how you guys doing? Welcome to Phie.Love Intuitive Conversations. I hope you guys are good. Yeah. If you like my content, please do like, share, and subscribe. And if there's any negativity, if there's any hate, please do keep that on your side of the street, okay? Won't be acknowledged. So, family, in this video, I'm being guided by spirit to touch back on the topic around a spiritual awakening. So, I have a few videos back, right? Where I began talking broadly about how, ascension and spiritual awakenings are tied into one another, right? And I have 3 videos in specific that I've recently done that touch on different aspects of how aspects of the ascension that we're going through collectively, right? And also how, us going through spiritual awakenings and whatever it is that may trigger also spiritual awakenings are connected to and tied into all of it, right? Now, again, in the most recent video I did, where I spoke about, after spiritual awakening, the things that are behind the veil of our flesh become a permanent thing in our lives, right? Being able to see beyond the flesh, perceive beyond the flesh, and have to integrate that and accept that as a part of our new reality and how we translate and digest as well our external reality, as well as the energetic reality that is a part of our experience as well, which is something you awaken to and you acclimate to once you go through spiritual awakenings and you start triggering into your ascension process, right? But now in the past videos where I've spoken about ascension, I'll tag the most recent one below. That also has a nice recap, as well as the other 2 videos tagged in the comments section to that video that you can go into if you're interested. But the most recent video that I did, in that one I touch a little on some of the details that you might experience, some of the details of the experience of a spiritual awakening that you might go through. And excuse me, I've got some energy moving. So I talk about some of the details within a spiritual awakening that you go through once you go through whatever event you go through that sort of creates the misalignment between your external reality and the reality that you are going through within, which is generally, can be triggered through, whatever life-shaking events that misalign whatever you experience within yourself that cause you to become more self-aware, and what you've believed for however long that your reality and experience was on the outside, that you were unconsciously engulfed in and not actively and consciously aware of the actual reality that that you're actually living and experiencing on the inside. So in this video, without going into too much of what I've spoken about in the last videos, in this video we're going to sort of focus a little more on the details of a spiritual awakening, as well as what they would call a dark night of the soul. Okay, these are things that you can also go online and take the time to look up and do a little bit more reading on. They will also sort of expand your perspective on certain spiritual issues, that if you are of a very strong religious mind and you're somebody who is very much on the physical side of things, and because of your own programming and the things that you're guided by in your life, and you believe that, if you can't see it and if it isn't physical, then it doesn't exist, right? Because a lot of the time, even if you're a religious mind, you move off of the indoctrinations. There isn't exactly always, with others who are religious and also spiritually aware to an extent, they're able to conceptualize and maybe connect with the abstract idea of, well, with the abstract, yeah, I'll say idea or concept of, you know um, of the realities of life and the Most High and the divine that we don't physically see with our eyes, right? But again, that is something for another video. In this video, we're going to focus on spiritual awakening and what we would call the dark night of the soul. They call it the dark night of the soul. When you hear people say it's darkest before the dawn, not everybody fully understands what that means, right? Now, a spiritual awakening aligns with us sort of becoming aware to certain revelations and things in our lives that were maybe always there, but didn't sort of meet the reality of what we believed reality is, right? Now, when you have a spiritual awakening, you awaken to certain aspects of your reality that you didn't consider before, right? Now, over time, you go through a series of events, very small, sometimes much bigger, that will create a bigger shift within you, with regards to the misalignment you might recognize or become aware of, to the reality you're engulfed in on the outside, and the reality you are actually experiencing within, right? Now, the bigger the shift in those things, the bigger the event that triggers a bigger shift, right? Be it trauma, be it your be it really painful family issues, accidents, divorce, people also that their debt issues, create spiritual awakenings where people actually really start awakening to the reality on to the reality of money and debt, and they're forced to to look at themselves and see where their priorities for so long have unconsciously been lying, forced to look at themselves and challenge themselves to taking accountability and accepting that they haven't fully been aligned with what reality is and the reality that they've been striving to achieve and fulfill, that's been programmed into them over time. These are all things that individuals, through whatever might happen, where the debt becomes so far out of hand, and out of their control, that they have no choice but to sit down with themselves and self-evaluate. Getting to the point of trying to figure out how you're going to fix your debt issue requires you to actually sit down and step out of what you've been chasing the whole time, self-evaluate and take accountability, right? Move your perspective and your awareness back to the reality of your life and your situation, that you're not actually living, that you're not in reality. The reality you've been trying to create for yourself by going into debt is not the truth about your own about your own life and your reality. It's not where you actually are in your life. Where you are is not where you're hoping that your death will give you the illusion of being, right? Again, that's something each individual will work out differently within their own lives and within their own internal experience, right? Now, when these things happen, sometimes, now, dark nights of the soul are also certain things that are, again, the aspects of it are pretty similar in how, in how it's experienced within each person, but depending on the certain aspects of yourself that need to be challenged in order for you to grow, to become aware and transcend yourself and strip the old identity, the unfolding of a dark night of the soul, which is triggered by way of spiritual awakenings, a series of spiritual awakenings that kind of awaken you to the misalignment of reality that you've been living in, to the misalignment to reality that you've been living in, right? I hope we're still together. Now, the more spiritual awakenings you have, the bigger the shift from the reality you thought was reality and the reality that you're experiencing within yourself, right? The bigger the shift, the more intense the doubt, the more intense the fear, the more intense the feeling of meaninglessness, the more intense the fear of the unknown, the more intense the fear of the experience of feeling ungrounded, feeling like you don't know left from right, feeling like you don't know where to go, feeling like you don't know what the right and the wrong decision is anymore, feeling like, the anxiety and all of it, everything that you've been struggling or that you've been striving to keep in control, to hold in place. Suddenly the shift between the old reality and the true reality of what you actually are experiencing within yourself and within your own personal reality compared to what you thought was reality is so big that now you're moving into a process of stripping the old identity of self because you no longer align to what the old reality was that you believed was reality, that you built your identity or your persona around, or tried to build an identity or persona around unconsciously, that was more, guided and fueled by all the things on the inside and the background that you were programmed by from a young you were programmed by from the time you were young to aspire to align to develop an identity that fits into the story and into the system on the outside, right? Now, this space of the unknown, this liminal space, right? This space of transition where you're, this space of transition where you're in the transition space of stripping the old, involuntary, because when this is happening to you, it's being done by the divine, okay? So also know that you're not alone. Either way, when you're in this liminal space of transition, right, of stripping the old and now having to find your way in the darkness, right? This darkness means not knowing. Darkness means not having the information you think you need to make the next decision, to decipher your supposed path or way or steps forward, right? Now you're in this space of transition between shedding the old and having to now move into a place of new. And it's all a big shock to the system, because when you now move into a place of being in the dark night of the soul, it can feel like it's abrupt. But if you take the time to ground and to just, try and think about how the changes in your life have led to a specific moment where where you don't know what's next, you'll recognize that there's already been a kind of series of events that have happened, that have already been detaching you more and more and more and more and more from the old identity that you clung onto, from the old identity that was based on the desires and the needs of your programmed mind and your ego. Sorry, I thought I heard something. Now, when you're in this dark night of the soul place, a lot of things are happening, okay? And like I said in the beginning of the video, the experiences each person who goes through this thing are similar, but they unfold at different times, depending on what aspects of you and yourself need to be released, need to be worked out, you need to transcend, you need to become aware of. A lot of it, okay? Depending on what aspects of yourself within yourself are going to be challenged. And it's a sacred personal process. It is not something that, a psychologist or friend or someone out there is going to be able to balance you out and help you out with. In most cases, when this is happening, the divine is stripping you completely. The divine is moving everything and anything. You're in a process now of completely relationships, family, friends, habits, old ways of thinking. Everything has to be confronted, taken accountability for, and transcended. And eventually, once you've learned, once you've found the courage to look at it, it can be released, and you start moving into your new energy. The divine has you in a process now of molding you into a new person, molding you into a new energy, which will in turn also then translate in your physical realm and your physical experience. And everything about you is just different and changes, and you don't resonate there in the past with the old people and the old thoughts and the old habits and the old decisions and the old whatever it is anymore. Suddenly your past starts thinking that you've got your nose up towards them, when really, no, they just don't understand the process that you've had to go through to remold yourself, to find your stability. It's a fight, and you do it incomplete. Well, not complete, because the divine is there guiding you, but while in the process, and while you're trying to find your grounding, while you're trying to overcome, the inability to control things, because we're so stuck in believing that we can control everything in our lives, that we do control everything in our lives. And we have to learn now over time and in a new process of learning how to release, things onto the universe and let things be, and be okay with and be okay with how things work themselves out and manifest within our lives, without us trying to be too entrenched and wrapped up in controlling everything and engaging in everything and judging everything, and just being stressed out. Okay, so this process, which is only a small aspect to it that I'm talking about, this thing that I'm talking about is called being in the space of the dark night of the soul. And this can go on for months. it can even go on for years. How, you know, the the amount of time is dependent on you. It's dependent on how resistant you are to the changes, because one of the key things you need to know when you're going through this dark night of the soul, where the your energy and your experience moves into the, it's like your free will goes away. And it's like your energy and your experience moves into the complete hands of the divine. So the more you resist, the more you fight against changes, the more you refuse to recognize changes in people, changes in energy, changes in yourself, things not working out, the more you resist and fight against things that, are of your old ways, things that are of your old triggers, your old desires, your old wants, your old worries, your old fears, right? The more you resist these things while you're confronted with them, wanting to take control, wanting to push back, wanting to fight, the harder and the more tedious your process becomes. And the more you resist, the more you break your ego down. And once you release, and it gets to the point of you, wanting to be in control and operate out of your ego so badly. I mean, change and having to, put your ego in the back seat can sometimes feel like you're going to die, depending on how stuck in certain things and ways and belief systems and indoctrinations that you are. And now life and your energy and the divine is stepping in and putting you into a place of having to just say fuck everything, release everything, and watch it all crumble. Everything you'd normally try and believe that you're able to keep together, you just have to release now and let it crumble and allow the breakdown to happen, so you can be, by way of the universe and the divine and the most high, rebuilt. It's a lot to have to digest and take through, and in the same breath, deal with the releasing and the becoming aware of certain attachments and things that are not good for you. There's a lot that happens during this process. So when you're going through it, be gentle with yourself. And more with everything, with all these revelations happening in the world, and with all these, with people now, with the energies rising and us becoming more privy to what's going on, being able to perceive what's going on behind the veil of our physical flesh, and our mental defenses also being broken down. It's a lot. It's a lot to deal with. And going the psychologist or psychiatrist route when you don't really know what's happening in your life, and you're just going through the spiritual crisis, the spiritual predicament or dilemma or difficulty, and if you're explaining it to the psychologist, they think that you're crazy. You're referred then to I don't know how they work it out, but you're referred then to a psychiatrist, and then before you know it, you're on medication, or you're being put into a psych ward. Lots of people have ended up in these situations because the people they were surrounded by were not aware that they were actually going through this process, and they themselves have, our populace is so shielded off from the realities of these spiritual issues that that people who are going through these things don't even know where to look. And when they're stuck in the religious indoctrinations as well, they're unable to fully connect with whatever it is they're indoctrinated by in their actual personal experience, right? So you will pick up on when you're in this dark night of the soul, you're going to go as well through a period where you're going to feel like you're being isolated from the whole world. Okay? The divine, the universe, will invert people's energy against you. And that's all in an effort to help you move away, all in an effort to help you see the truth about the people in your life. They're going to make, like I said in the last video that I'll tag below, they're going to make certain things that you were not aware of before apparent to you. And they're going, it can be difficult to take in, to accept and digest and transcend whatever it is that you might go through because of the attachment, and like I said before as well, the mental defenses you have up when it comes to certain people, your abandonment issues. All of these things during a dark night of the soul you're going to be confronted with. Okay? So, man, I wish I could just go into a whole lot more detail about it because there's so much, and I'll try to expand on it in another video. I will. So, like I said, don't fight it. Release, let go. Don't be afraid to see yourself and confront yourself. All thoughts, energy, emotions, the problems in your life are going to be amplified. Things that you've swept under the rug, things you never wanted to look at, things that are going to highlight your own issues and your own patternings and where you're out of balance. And a lot of the time the divine will trigger these things when also people are so far out of balance in their behavior, right? So let's say that you're somebody who engages in excessive sex, or you have certain addictions, or you have certain behaviors that constantly put you into trouble, or just have you in unnecessary cycles that keep your life in a constant state of turmoil, a constant state of chaos. And because you're unaware and unawakened to yourself and unable to actually consciously see the truth of yourself, the reality of yourself, to be able to accept the reality of yourself and recognize where you're acting and guided out of your ego and your fears and your programming and whatever the religion and whatever indoctrinations you also have through religion. When all of these things start going too far out of balance, the divine will trigger these spiritual awakenings as well and move you into a dark night of the soul that will make you strip everything, and suddenly your life feels like it has no meaning. Suddenly you don't know what you want anymore, you don't know what you like anymore. Things are just, they're not the same. People you want to hold on to, you won't be able to hold on to. Things you once liked, you don't like. It's a lot, okay? And like I also said in the last video, I know that having people to talk to who will understand this experience can be really scarce. Generally, also because the universe inverts people's energy towards you. You're going to feel like people are against you. People are going to interpret you as crazy because they're not going to understand the internal changes and the instability that you're for a momentary, temporary time going through, and need to kind of lean into and become self-aware and release control. The trick is to become aware to self. Learn about yourself. Don't try and get engaged with the outside world. Don't try and take control of anything in the outside world. Everything happening on the outside is meant to enlighten you to your experience of it, and your experience of it within, and become enlightened to self, and become aligned to the self within, not to the self that you've created that was based on the outside, right? Eat clean if you can. Sorry. Got cut there. Anyway, so as I said, eat clean if you can. Okay? Drink a lot of water. You drink a lot of water because water also helps us. It's an energy conductor as well, right? So it will help us also integrate and translate whatever the the divine is trying to imprint and also project onto you to help you, you know, decipher and how to say, and take in and integrate and perceive the messages that, you know, or the communication that they're trying to communicate with you and help guide you through, you know, whatever the amplified things that you're going through, whether it be your thoughts or emotions, or, you know, the problems that you're dealing with that you need to face and take accountability for yourself, your behavior, your actions, your habits, you know, your certain areas within yourself that maybe you've been operating out of unconsciously and need to overcome so that you can bring balance to other areas of your life, and also be an energetic match to whatever it is that, you know, of a higher vibration experience and reality that you've probably been previously on a soul level wishing to live and bring into your life, right? Now, to wrap up, because I know it's been a long video now, a tip, right? Now, I know that if you're more of a religious mind, and, you know, you're heavy into the indoctrination of you don't worship other gods and whatever it might be out there that people follow, okay? Just as a tip, when you're going through this dark night of the soul, now there's, okay, so to help ground yourself, right? Because you've been going through this stripping process and now you're in a place of darkness, and the only way you're going to find your grounding again is by becoming enlightened to self on the inside, right? And, you know, grounding yourself and moving yourself into your own personal soul energy, and no longer and moving out of the mindset and programming that you need to have yourself be and aligned to what the outside world says and what the other things within you say you need to be, and, you know, to be a somebody, to be a something, right? When this happens to you, you recognize, and your ego breaks all the way down, and you recognize that, you know, I'm a somebody, but I'm really also a nobody at the same time, and everything I thought I knew was wrong, and I know nothing. And the wisest place to be right now is accepting that I know nothing and be open to learning everything that's going to start becoming apparent to me. Okay, so a tip to this, to help ground you. Okay, I'm not imposing this onto anybody. It's a tip, and it's a really nice way to also help you become enlightened to self and the areas of yourself where you might be misaligned to your own higher energy and to the purer energy of the universe and the divine, and also become, you know, become enlightened and awakened to maybe where you've been existing also into the existing also in the darker aspects of yourself. Okay, so there's something called the 42 laws of Ma'at. Okay, it's there are 42 morals, principles that come out of the Kemet Egyptian. Well, I mean, the system calls them Egyptian, but it comes out of the Kemet belief system, right? And the Kemet belief system also very much focused around spiritual growth, spiritual transformation, and ascension. And, you know, there's a lot to enlighten yourself to, and to learn about when it comes to those times of living, and how the people of those times as well interpreted and dealt with their life experience, and saw reality, compared to how humanity right now has been so shielded off from the aspects of themselves and their spiritual existence that play a very big role in their own growth and their own, realization and enlightenment to self, and also caring for their well-being after disembodiment, right? Now, when you go also into the Kemet teachings and all of that, you'll recognize that, the Egyptians as well in those times, they they gave a lot of thought and a lot of care to what in today's time you would call the afterlife, when really it would be whatever we move on to, or whatever we move on to after disembodiment happens. Now, these 42 laws of Ma'at, what is nice about them is, if you're going through the dark night of your soul, using them as a bit of a guideline to help you also realign yourself with your conscience, yourself with universal law, and understanding what types of things it is that we we can exist in, to avoid creating energetic imbalances within the universe and our experience for our soul, that accumulates things like karma, right? And also to help become enlightened to self-engage where we might be very far off creating imbalances and karma for ourselves. Now, this 42 laws of Ma'at, it speaks to and gives a lot of care to us releasing also and cleansing ourselves and living and moving our energy into a space of higher vibration and integrity, that will also open our vessel and our energetic field and our consciousness enough to accommodate for a broader perspective of reality that the system invests a lot of money into, a lot of energy and resources and everything into making sure that we are loaded with a whole bunch of stuff that doesn't allow for us to hold and integrate and be able to perceive and accommodate for a broader perspective of reality. But to stay so focused on on the details and the fears and the ego and everything that your mind is wrapped up in and that your energy is wrapped up in is directed and focused on those things and the things that they've told you is right and need to be maintained and kept in control for you to be a a something within society. These 42 laws of Ma'at also, so when you align yourself to this, and I don't mean take it now with an approach of trying to indoctrinate yourself into them. It should be something you move into gradually, something you embody by way of understanding, becoming enlightened to self, and moving into that new energy and embodiment of whatever it is. It might be overwhelming to look at in the beginning because it's a long list of things, but if you really look at it, it's really just being a decent person, being a person of integrity, being a person of honor, being a person of self-respect, being a person of self-love for yourself and the environment and the universe and the world around you. Okay, and recognizing as well by going into self-evaluation if you're using those, morals and principles as a bit of a guideline, not indoctrination or education, but as a guideline to help you become enlightened to self and to become aware of where the aspects of yourself are that the universe as well might be trying to highlight to you in this process of you going through your dark night of the soul, of you being able to work yourself and move yourself through it, right? And learning as well to learning to deal with the experience of your current present moment and move out of the programming of being so focused on the future and at the same time living in the past. Your dark night of the soul is going to be very difficult if you don't learn how to just be accepting and learn how to experience your current and present moment and whatever it is you have going on inside yourself, mentally, energetically, emotionally, whatever is coming up to be worked out and to be looked at and to be taken account for. Okay? These 42 laws of Ma'at, they help you also move into an energy and into the space of naturally moving into ascension, because you transcend yourself as you face these different aspects of yourself that you might realize over time by using them as a guidance that, that you might not, that you might be a bit out of balance. As you work these things out, after you disembody, you're also then enlightened enough and embody the understanding of what your choices and decisions are after embodiment. If you're out of balance, if you have karma still to resolve, you're going to come back into embodiment within this, it used to be, within the realm of earth, or into another realm that accommodates for the dimensional mindset that is still very bound and stuck in ego and fear and, fear of death, fear of releasing the material. That's also just something that's something I'll get into again with another video, because I think I've put a lot into this video now, right? So yeah, I'll attach to this video in the comment section below. I'll put the last video that I was talking about that I did, and I will also attach just a basic list of the 42 laws of Ma'at. They have different versions that, it's the same, but just sort of worded differently depending on who put that specific version of the list together. And yeah, if you're interested, do a little more reading on, the Kemet belief system and way of living, and the spirit, how the Egyptians, lived by the way of Kemet. There's a lot to it, okay? And you'll learn as well, become very enlightened to other certain things that we've been withheld from over time, and that we should have been taught about in school, but it didn't happen. Anyway, family, I'm not going to read a card today. I hope it's resonated. I hope it's invoked a bit of thought. I hope it's been something that, can comfort whoever is going through a spiritual awakening or their dark night of the soul. And again, if you need to get it out, if you need to talk to somebody, if you want to just write it out and have somebody read it for you, whatever it is you're experiencing that you might not be able to talk to somebody else about, send me an email, okay? I can't promise that I'll respond in an extensive way, but I'm here, I'm willing to read, I'm willing to listen, and I also understand. I understand it because I too have been through quite a very heavy one myself. It's been extensive. Anyway, I'll see you in the next video, family, okay? Bye.